Stargirl, The Lost Children, issue 2, Geoff Johns writing with Todd Nuck on the art. So, Emmy and Courtney go to the Arrow Cave, which Courtney rightly points out that Oliver really wanted to be Batman. Because it's very Batcave looking.
It is so funny, and it's a great commentary, because that is down to the different suits that are on display in cases.
Oh, yeah, even the idea that he's got like all the old sidekick costumes and stuff.
Yeah. This was, you're talking about reading Comics Monthly. Sometimes it takes you a minute to remember. This was definitely one of those for me. Whereas I had to try to remember where we left off at and what was going on, because we just jump in with Courtney and Emmy.
End of the last issue teased the island, right? It teased the old sidekick who was researching, like maybe dying on the way to the island or just almost getting there.
And then it all kicked in, and it made sense. So
and this, what's really neat actually is that it makes a point of showing you some of the costumes in this Arrow Cave that are going to be the characters that show up at the end of the issue, so that you've seen them already, so that you get that this is the missing sidekicks.
Who they are.
But it's basically Emmy and Courtney get in the boat, which, by the way, I assume Emmy just knows how to operate a boat, because like I don't know how to operate a boat. You put me in a boat, I don't know what I'm going to do. But whatever, these teenagers are better at things than I am. So they're going to this spooky triangle in the water, not quite the Bermuda Triangle, but similar idea. And that's one of the islands here is the one that Emmy was sort of kidnapped on and kept for a long time. She even talks at one point about how she kind of feels sad that Oliver never came looking, even though she knows that he didn't know about her, but she doesn't want to tell him that because he'll feel guilty, even though he didn't know who she was at the time. So I thought that was an interesting little bit of character building that they're doing there. Courtney has this like thought that, in her narration, that even if they find these missing sidekicks, they'll all be like in their 90s. So she basically prays to the gods and says, please, can one of them still be alive, just so that it'll help Emmy out a lot if we find at least one of these sidekicks. And it was this.
And I also like that she wants the idea that at least even if they are dead, it gives a closure, right?
Sure, but it was this moment though where I said, they're going to still be kids. Like this was the moment where I went, because she's having this thought, they're going to be in like a time bubble or something where
like
they're not aged.
Slip.
Yeah. So, and sure enough, this is where the sort of weird ghost of Airwave or whatever appears and tries to warn her, but his ghost explodes and the boat, of course, explodes. So they end up in the water. Emmy's there too, and they wash ashore this island. The staff isn't working right away. She's kind of begging Cosmo to turn back on, and we see there's someone watching them on a security camera. Courtney noticed that the sand here is kind of notable. The beach is made up of the same sand that's in Our Man's time glass, which
which is weird. That's different.
That's very odd. Which definitely paints the idea that this island is different and special, and maybe not too lost like, but certainly a special island that is hard to find.
Well, and just the idea that it makes this triangle with the island that Oliver was on, right? And so it adds there might be something in that area that is, that, what am I trying? Because with Ollie going back in time with the Seven Soldiers and stuff, like there's something about this neck of the woods that calls the Arrow characters to there too. So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, the goofy part of the issue is that these like weird egg robots come out and try and attack them, so they fight them off. They try to
one
kidnap.
of them almost gets Emmy.
Yeah, like it's kind of like closing around her. So this is clearly a kidnapping robot. But Courtney blasts it with the staff, but that doesn't quite save her. Emmy gets dragged into the jungle, and that's when these other sidekicks jump out. We get Wing, an Airwave, and
Cherry Bomb.
Cherry Bomb, yes. I'm glad you remembered that. So this is called Orphan Island, and Wing says, we're trapped here, but we can escape. And the robot dog's like, you've been saying that for decades. And it's literally been like 80, 70 years or something like that. So, obviously, this is the story we're reading. So, yes, things are going to change. Courtney's going to be the missing ingredient. Her and Emmy will save them. But, it's a fun enough cliffhanger. It makes sense. We're finding these pulpy sidekick characters on the island. interesting stuff. It wasn't a surprise, the ending, that they're all still kids. One, because it just makes more sense from a story purpose that they're not all like these like really old people who can barely move.
Yeah.
But also just because the way it's set up in the issue, it was like, because Courtney's had this thought, they are definitely still their age.
Yeah. Also, it's called The Lost Children, right?
Very true.
I kind of figured that would factor in. I can't remember the little robot dog, and that's something I thought I could remember. So I'm gonna have to get out that guidebook, the JSA one. And where did he come from? Because he seems familiar. But I love seeing him there. Like that was cool. But yeah. I like when John says this type of stuff because it's going to play with the history, and I'm sure the Seven Soldiers are going to tie in somehow with this timey-wimey island, you know.
No doubt.
Especially because you have a Star character and an Arrow character in there with them.
Yeah,
and then you have Wing. So
yeah, I would say this issue is not as strong as the first, mainly because the first one introduced all these elements that were really intriguing and mysterious and all that. This one's a bit more straightforward and has a really sort of simple cliffhanger. It's all solid stuff, and it's enjoyable enough to read, and they're bouncing off of each other is still very good, and he's planting some of these like, you know, deeper character beats for Emmy, and you know, just the general feel of it is quite good. But it's not as intriguing or as exciting as the first issue, which introduced the whole idea of these missing sidekicks and how it's weird that no one remembers them. Like, all that stuff was so interesting when it got introduced in issue 1. That this issue, by default, suffers from typical issue 2 syndrome, which is it's just a lot more straightforward and just getting them to this next point in the story. But it's solid enough at doing that, and the art is still fits the characters and the personality of them really well.
What gets me is Todd Knock has not lost a step, because I don't know what he was doing in between a lot of these Stargirl stuff, but I went back and read the original Stargirl again, like I think it was last year, and his art is still as crisp as it was back in when Courtney was first introduced, in that Stars and Stripes book. So it's amazing how well that it's kept up. And so it all feels a part of the same piece at some points, because like I can't remember when Wing was introduced. Was that in the spring break special? Was that in earlier stuff in Stars and Stripe? I can't remember, and that's mainly because the art feels all of one piece. So
don't quiz me what was in the spring break special.
I'm not, but I'm just trying to remember when I was first introduced to Wing, and I feel like it's been a while, but it might not have been. I don't know, and I guess that makes his art kind of timeless, which is perfect for this.
I don't know, but he was introduced alongside a prayer. A Wing and a prayer for anyone who didn't get that joke. Yeah. It was comedy gold. Just trust that it was comedy gold and move on with your lives. All right, what are you rating Stargirl: The Lost Children issue 2?
I'm gonna give this I'll give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm just going with a 7. I think it's a bit closer to serviceable versus the first issue, but I was still enjoying it. It was good, but it just didn't hit quite the same the intriguing notes that the first issue did. And plus, you got the goofy egg robot things. It's just like, okay, this is just a bit silly.